Now I've gone ahead and created for you this logo animation project that you'll find in the Chapter 6 folder. This is really important because there's a sequence in here called Start, which is basically just the logo we've been looking at, and the logo fully animated in this end sequence. This is very important, I think, because it's actually very boring, at least it is to me, when you sit and watch somebody go through the whole process of creating art. I'm going to show you a little bit how to animate this logo. A lot of it's some of the stuff we've already talked about. I'll walk you through what I did in the end animation, and then you have the project here to go through yourself and kind of learn on your own. And I should probably point out here that if you want to get more in depth into animation like this, if this kind of stuff really turns you on, then you definitely want to check out Adobe After Effects. After Effects was made just for animation like this. It's much easier to do in After Effects, and using a program that's built for that purpose makes it a lot more enjoyable as well. So the first thing I want to do here to my logo is change the anchor points. If I click on all of these, the anchor points are in the center. I don't want them there. Now, to exactly see where the anchor point is, what I like to do is just click on the object. The problem is that the topmost object gets selected, which in this case is the 3. So what I'm going to do is turn off the 3 and lock it so I can't select it. Do the same thing with the death layer, and then select the ninja layer. And now I can go in and play with the anchor point of the ninja layer. Now, I want to make this logo animate on kind of all kung fu fighting style. So I want to make it come in like it's chopping. So I'm going to put the anchor point on this side. So I'm going to open up motion. I'm going to hold shift while I drag anchor point and move it. And don't worry if it's moving out of place. We'll fix that momentarily. And move it right there. And now I'm going to use the bounding box of the layer as kind of like a guide to get it back in place. We'll come back to that later. For now, I'm going to make this layer invisible and lock it. And let's unlock the death layer and select that. And let's change the anchor point of the death layer. So I actually want this one in the upper left-hand corner of the layer. See, folks, I know this is the most exciting thing in the world, and that's why we're not doing a whole entire video of animating the entire thing, so it would even get more boring than this. I just want to give you a few little tips, though, before I call it quits here. So we get it into place, and now turn this off, unlock this, turn on layer 3. And on the number 3, what I'm going to do here is put the anchor point in the center of the 3. We're going to have it spin in, and we want it to spin around its center point. Now let's get that into position there. Cool. Now, I don't want the 3 to actually come on until last, so I'm going to scoot this, trim this in so we don't have to worry about that. And let's go ahead and take the death layer and rotate that like so. And I want that to come in off screen from this angle. But I'm not going to animate it yet, so I'm going to drag it away. Just get that off the screen. And now let's lock these other 2 layers, actually, and select the ninja layer. Now I'm actually going to animate the ninja layer coming in from off screen, like I mentioned, and kind of chopping in. But it's going to be kind of hard for me to drag it off screen when I can't really see off screen that much. So I'm going to change the view from fit to 25%. That way I can see a lot of this external background here, making it easier to drag this ninja layer here away from the viewable area of the program monitor. I'm actually going to undo that, put it back where it was. I am going to change the rotation to about 34 degrees. And now I'll drag it off screen here. I'm going to hit the right arrow 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm at frame 10 here. And I'm going to drag it into position. And actually, this isn't going to work. You know why? Because I forgot to set a keyframe. So I'm going to undo this, hit the home key, and then set a keyframe for both position and rotation. Now I'm going to go 10 frames in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now, when I move this, it will actually create animation instead of just moving the object. Now, this is what I want you to see, and this is the reason why I'm going through a lot of this kind of tedious stuff so you can see what I'm doing just for this step I'm about to show you now. Before I go on, I am going to retype 34 degrees. Now, why in the world would I want to do that? Well, as soon as you set a keyframe, on the next frame, Premiere is going to interpolate between the next keyframe. I used the analogy before of going from LA to Chicago. Basically, once you say, okay, Premiere, you're going from LA to Chicago, the very next frame, the next moment it's going to be on its way to Chicago. So in other words, to bring this back into Premiere, at frame 0, we set a keyframe for rotation at 34 degrees. We had this ninja text off screen a little bit, and then come on screen, and then we're going to have it hold for a little bit. And then we're going to change the rotation. If we didn't retype 34 degrees, which basically set another keyframe with the same value here, which will make it hold on 34 degrees, if we didn't do that, then it would start rotating to the next value automatically. So basically, again, going back to my LA to Chicago analogy, we just told Premiere, hey, sit tight in LA for a little bit longer. So now we're going to go out another 5 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to do the same thing again with rotation, retyping the value. And actually what we can do, a little shortcut to this, is to click this little keyframe diamond here. We'll talk more about this keyframe navigator area in Beyond the Basics. But for right now, just hit that diamond. That sets another keyframe with the same value at that point in time. Now we can go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more frames. Let's zero out the rotation. And then let's move this back into position using the bounding box as a guide. Hit the home key and let's play that. See how this cool karate chop action? Yeah, yeah. Very cool. And so on and so forth. That's what I wanted to really show you though, is holding on a keyframe to pause. You see what it did there is that instead of just going in one fluid motion, just going around like this instead of just going around like that, it went to that first place and then paused. That's why we created those keyframes that were duplicate values. So it would stay there. So for 5 frames, basically, again, with my LA to Chicago analogy, it's waiting in Los Angeles. It's waiting for us to say go. And then it's ready to interpolate. So we have this cool hold effect, which again mimics this karate chop. So chop, pause, chop. Now, I did the same thing with the death layer, and with the number 3, basically what I did was I animated it to be super huge, scaled it up all the way, which is 600% is the maximum scale value. And then I had it rotate and scale and fade in at the same time. So let's see what the whole final piece looks like. I'm going to hit the home key, and then let's preview this with the space bar. And that's what the final logo looks like. Again, if you want to get adventurous, feel free to click any one of these layers, come up here to the effect controls, open this up a little bit, and see what keyframes I set where, and feel free to just explore and play around with this file that I've created for you. Now, that just about does it for the animation chapter. We'll talk about how to animate effects a little bit later on when we get to effects, and we'll talk about how to animate transitions and some other things when we get to those things again a little bit later on in this series. For now, let's go to the next chapter where we're going to talk about playing with time, speeding things up and slowing things down.